So you thought it was the end of the story. You thought that one single event, that one single moment was enough for him to stand amongst the great.
Sleep? I don't sleep. You thought that was it?
Well, you thought it was over. Well, it's just getting started. This is the part where you reinvent yourself. It's time to get tested, to test your will, your endurance. It's time to test your heart, to test your limit.
It's about no days off, no weekend, no holidays, no birthdays. Listen to me, no days off. It's about gaining the competitive edge. You can't afford to make excuses. No excuses when you feel pain. And trust me, you feel it. And all you want to do is give up. And all you want to do is give in. When you feel like you've given all you got, you got to take one more step. You got to run one more lap. You got to throw one more punch until you reach the top.
This is your beginning, but this doesn't have to be your end.
Get off the ground.
You can't do nothing without faith. You are still special.
Is it beyond our reach?
No, I'm not afraid. I'm angry.
You can't give in!
Behind every fear is a person you want to be. Fear is self-imposed, meaning it doesn't exist. You create it, you can destroy it. You face your fears, you become the person you want to be. You run from your fears, you're not living. You're alive, but you're not taking anything. The freedom, you're not running the day. The day's running you. We all fall down in life. The question is, who gets back up?
How's it going, everyone? Mormon Truther here, back with another YouTube video. And what you have just seen is various comments from reddit.com on a, what would you call it? I don't want to call it an anti-Mormon forum because people tend to get upset when you say the term anti-Mormon, as it is demeaning for all intents and purposes. But it was a forum regarding the LDS Church, for all intents and purposes. Some people were posting for, some people posting against. And I went on there some time ago to give the critics an opportunity to read and, if they wished, respond to my book, Donning the Armor of God. And it, as is no surprise, had led to several debates with several people, many of which think that I didn't publish the book myself. And others had challenged me to open a topic for discussion and post sections of my book relating to said topic for people to read, which is what I'm doing here. Now, why am I doing this as a video rather than just posting the text itself to the forum? Well, like I said, a few people on reddit.com seem to think that I am not the author of the book, which is kind of odd. Why would I be promoting a book that isn't mine? I don't know. And as such, I've been accused as being a troll and so on and so forth, even though, at least in my personal opinion, I have not been remotely disrespectful, slanderous. I haven't called anybody foul names or anything like that. You know, I've tried to keep it relatively professional. But all the same, I get hit with this opposition, so I decided rather than just post the text, I would give the people of Reddit.com and the world an opportunity to see my face and see that I am, in fact, the author of Donning the Armor of God. Now, you can see my face, and as you can see, not sure if it's dark or not, but there is my picture right there. And you can see pretty plain and clear that this is in fact me. But now that we've got that out of the way, and this, for all intents and purposes, verifies my identity as being Christopher Sheldon, author of Donning the Armor of God, let's go ahead and move into the debate, for all intents and purposes, regarding the Book of Abraham. And I've given this much thought and have decided that I'm going to make this a little YouTube series addressing varying points against the church using my book. So today we are going to discuss the Book of Abraham. More specifically, facsimile number 1, as that seems to be the focus of the comments on reddit.com. Okay, so as we've already discussed, the topic for today is the Book of Abraham. So I've got my book open on Kindle, and we are just going to scroll down to the index and click on chapter 12, the Book of Abraham. Now, the focus in the comments on Reddit seemed to be focused on facsimile 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the first portion of chapter 12, and after which we'll just see where the discussion leads from there. Alrighty, chapter 12, the Book of Abraham. The Book of Abraham is looked on by the church and its members as being an inspired translation by Joseph Smith. It was originally published in the Times and Seasons and later added to the Pearl of Great Price. These writings are regarded by the church as Holy Scripture and are a prime target for anyone seeking to discredit the church. In fact, the Book of Abraham is a favorite topic for critics of the church because its arguments are the most difficult to contend with. They raise seemingly valid points and ideas that poke holes in the book's origins, information to present a compelling counter-argument, and defense materials against these points and views have been difficult for members to find. The base argument against the Book of Abraham generally focuses on facsimile 1, sometimes including facsimiles 2 and 3 as shown in the Book of Abraham as the basis to discredit Smith's translation, and is referenced by John Ankerberg, John Weldon, and Dylan Burrows in their book, The Facts on the Mormon Church, chapter 17, page 55, where they said, quote, "A portion of the Pearl of Great Price, the Book of Abraham, has been proven a forgery. Joseph Smith's original in Reformed Egyptian is not the Book of Abraham. Rather, it is a copy of a pagan text, the Egyptian Book of Breathing, an extension of the occult Egyptian Book of the Dead, telling of the journeys of the soul after death. It is insinuated that the church refuses to acknowledge this issue, that to do so would be an admittance of Joseph Smith's allegedly being a fraud." Again, as is the case with many of the critics' arguments that make this claim, the church has on numerous occasions addressed this matter. Yes, one of the papyri was in fact the Egyptian funeral text. However, this does not mean that this papyri was what Joseph Smith translated the Book of Abraham from. What critics often fail to mention is that Smith obtained 3 to 4 long scrolls in addition to, I'm not even sure how to pronounce this word, Hypocephalus, or facsimiles, where he purchased part of a collection of papyri and mummies that had been discovered in and brought to the United States from Egypt, and that only a handful of fragments out of these original materials were recovered from the Metropolitan Museum. The majority of these were lost due to the Egyptian artifacts having been left behind when the saints left Nauvoo, and the papyri and mummies were sold by Smith's family in 1856, nearly 2 decades after Smith's death, by the way. Thusly, as per the belief of historians, the papyri were divided and sold to various parties until most of them were destroyed in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Critics claim that the church did not identify the papyri as an Egyptian funeral text or the Book of Breathing until after Egyptologists had thoroughly examined them, and that the church is hiding or trying to cover up what the papyri actually contains. This, however, is in fact a bold-faced lie. The fact of the matter is, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in their magazine, The Improvement Era, ran a multi-part series with color pictures of the papyri not more than 2 months after they were received from the Metropolitan Museum in 1967. In this series, it was documented that the papyri was found to have contained Egyptian funerary texts and in fact was not the Book of Abraham. The article initially identified the papyri as being the Book of the Dead, only to later be properly identified and classified historically as the Egyptian Book of Breathing. Fair Mormon states in their article, The Book of Abraham, the Joseph Smith Papyri, that Joseph Smith said that one of the rolls contained the writings of Abraham, and his scribes quoted him as saying the scroll was written by Abraham's own hand upon the papyrus. The problem is that most modern scholars, including LDS scholars, date the papyri to be a few centuries before Christ, whereas Abraham lived about 2 millennia before Christ. Obviously, Abraham himself could not have penned the papyri. The phrase by his own hand can simply mean that Abraham is another author of the book. Similarly, we could hold a modern print of the Bible in our hands, point to 1 Corinthians, and say, this was written by the Apostle Paul. Joseph Smith was translating the writings of Abraham, so it is quite possible that he believed that the actual scroll in his possession was written by Abraham himself. There is really no evidence, however, that this belief was based on revelation. At this point, it needs to be understood and made clear that the church does not claim that the Book of Abraham or any of the missing books of Joseph were contained on any of the remaining papyri fragments. This includes, but is not limited to, facsimiles 1, 2, or 3. Nor does the church assume to know why these writings are not on said fragments or what has happened to the fragments containing these writings. Only speculation and possible theories can be given to potentially explain these matters. Some of these possible theories include the text was revealed much in the same manner as the Book of Mormon without the need for the actual papyri. The text was presented on portions of the papyri that are missing. And 3, the Book of Abraham manuscript was attached to the Book of Breathing manuscript and was lost. Or a final theory is perhaps there was a way of understanding the Egyptian ideograms anciently that is unknown to Egyptology in our day, yet to be discovered, deciphered, or acknowledged, that could yield an interpretation of a text that is different than the standard Egyptological reading. Reference fairmormon.com, the Book of Abraham, the Joseph Smith Papyri. Now on to facsimiles 1, 2, and 3. These facsimiles are a major target for criticism because pieces of these papyri were missing and were filled in for publications by an unknown party. It is believed that it was Joseph Smith or Reuben Hidlok, the engraver, who was responsible for the restoration. But regardless of who actually did it, the belief that it was Joseph Smith or Reuben Hidlok lends to the critics' notion that the sections that were filled in are in fact incorrect, and that this proves that Joseph Smith was not a prophet. They say that the priest should have had the head of Anubis, not a human head, or other images depicting similar scenes do not have the priest holding a knife, and that such images show two hawks. However, despite the claim that the images were correctly restored, Joseph Smith, or whoever did the restoration, did correctly interpret the figure as a priest. Whether the priest has a human head or is wearing a mask depicting the Egyptian god Anubis is irrelevant and makes no difference regarding the interpretation. Furthermore, a Latter-day Saint who saw the papyri in 1841 described it as containing the scene of an altar with a man bound and laid thereon, and the priest with a knife in his hand standing at the foot with a dove over the person bound on the altar with several idol gods standing around it. Similarly, Reverend Henry Caswell, who visited Nauvoo in April 1842, had a chance to see some of the Egyptian papyri. Caswell, who was hostile to the saints, described facsimile 1 as having a man standing by him with a drawn knife, reference Fair Mormon article restoration of missing portions of the facsimiles. Similar issues surround facsimiles 2 and 3, however the same argument applies. The missing pieces were filled in with images and characters from other parts of the papyri before being published. The big question is if these facsimiles were part of the Book of Breathing or any other text and did not have anything to do with Abraham. Then why are they featured in the Pearl of Great Price with explanations relating to Abraham? The best answer any Latter-day Saint can give is that Joseph Smith wanted to give an artist's rendition or visual depiction the writings of the Book of Abraham, in addition to possibly wanting at least a remnant, even a restored facsimile, to be recorded for future generations should something happen to the scrolls during or after his lifetime. Now, this is not an official LDS standing on the matter, but it does offer a reasonable possible explanation. Now, I'm sure that the critics and skeptics watching this video, as well as my friends on Reddit, will have numerous questions and counter arguments to present, and I look forward to addressing those in the future. But if you would like more information on this or other topics relating to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, feel free to pick up a copy of my book, Donning the Armor of God, at barnesandnoble.com, Amazon.com, or at any of the other links posted in the description below.